Part 1, The Cartridge. The wind off Loch Lynn had teeth that night. It dragged sleek sideways through the narrow lanes of Portnacroish, howling against shuttered windows and chimneys that hadn't smoked in months. Most of the 40 souls still stubborn enough to live there had long since gone to bed. All except one. Era Mackenzie was still out in it, boots sinking into wet snow, a scarf plastered to her face. Her phone's flashlight jittered in her trembling hand as she crossed the empty car park behind the Portnacroish Community Hall, where the last car boot sale of the year was dissolving into the storm. Only 3 stalls remained, damp cardboard, rusted tools, and one woman hunched beneath a tartan umbrella. Her face was lost behind a veil of rain and shadow. "Ye looking for something rare, lass?" The voice was thin, old, but carried over the wind with eerie clarity. Era hesitated, wiping ice from her hair. "I'm just browsing." "Ye not from here," the woman said, not asking. Her gloved hand brushed the snow off a small cardboard box on the table. Inside lay an old Nintendo 64 cartridge, its plastic yellowed with age. A strip of black electrical tape covered where the label should have been, a title scrawled over it in silver marker. Macraith's Reckoning. Era blinked. Something about the crude handwriting tugged at her. The M was crooked, almost like a sigil she'd seen once in a folklore manuscript. "How much?" she asked. The woman smiled. "£1'll do. But mind." She leaned forward. "Don't play it after midnight." Era laughed once, breathless in the cold. "Why not?" "Because that's when it remembers you," the woman said. By the time Era got back to the stone cottage, her fingers were stiff and white. The cottage was half buried under snowdrifts, the roofline sagging under decades of damp. Mairi's side was already dark. She always went to bed early, noise-cancelling headphones welded to her skull, knives lined in obsessive symmetry across the kitchen counter. Era slipped inside, stomping the snow from her boots. The power had flickered again, only one lamp glowed dimly, painting the living room in the color of bone. She pulled the old N64 from a crate under the TV, her father's, relic of a life that had stopped making sense. When she slotted the cartridge in, it clicked with a sound far too loud for the quiet. At first, nothing. Then, the TV flashed to life. A title screen, crude pixel art on a black void. Letters crawled across as if carved by invisible claws. Macraith's Reckoning. Press start to atone. Her pulse quickened. The sound design was wrong, grainy, reversed breathing layered under the menu hum. She pressed start. The camera panned through a ruined courtroom lit by candles. In the center stood a tall figure in a tattered suit, his head bowed, eyes milk-white. He held a burning gavel that dripped like wax. "Era Mackenzie," he said. "Listen carefully." Era froze. The voice wasn't coming from the TV. It was behind her. She turned sharply. The kitchen was empty, only the hum of the fridge and the wind clawing the window panes. But the voice continued, calm, intimate, almost kind. "This winter solstice, your skin will be taken. Your body hung from the old oak, where your sister froze. The crows are already outside." The TV distorted, static bleeding into the frame. Era's hands trembled on the controller. "What the hell is this?" On screen, the figure stepped closer until his face filled the display. The pixels warped into flesh, the screen bulged as if it might split. "They've begun the circle again," he whispered. "You have 72 hours to remember what you did." The game crashed, TV flicking black. Only Era's reflection remained, pale and shaking. For a long time, she didn't move. The only sound was her own shallow breathing. Then, faintly, from outside, the rustle of feathers. She crossed to the window. The fog had thickened, glowing faintly under the moon. By the stone wall at the edge of the property, 2 silhouettes stood, still as statues. Tall, cloaked in black. Each wore a plague mask shaped like a crow's beak, metal glinting wetly under the frost. Era's stomach dropped. "Ray," she called, voice cracking. No answer. When she blinked, the shapes were gone. Her phone buzzed violently. "Callum, you okay?" Power cut hit the pub, too. Saw someone outside your place. Don't open the door. Before she could reply, the lights died. Darkness swallowed the room. Era found her way by memory to the kitchen, fumbling for her lighter. The flame quivered, painting everything orange. The knives glimmered on the counter, each laid out with ritual precision. "Myri," she whispered. From upstairs came a muffled sound, like humming. Myri's voice, low, tuneless, almost a lullaby. Era felt the world tilt slightly. The derealization was back, edges of reality softening, like she'd stepped into her own dream. The air had that same wrong density she remembered from the morgue the night they'd identified Fion's body. The lighter's flame flickered and went out. She groped for her phone again, turned on the flashlight. The beam fell across the kitchen table, and she froze. In the thin dust on the table's surface, someone had written with a fingertip. 72 hours. Later, in her room, Era tried to rationalize it. It had to be some elaborate prank. The game, the old woman, the static voice, someone was fucking with her. Maybe Callum, maybe even Riven. Maybe her meds were off again. She swallowed a codeine, dry. The wind moaned through the window gap. Snow built up on the sill like ash. The N64 still sat downstairs, faintly ticking with the sound of cooling plastic. She lay on her side, facing the wall where a photo of Fion hung. Her sister's smile faded to almost nothing. They'd taken it 2 weeks before the accident on Ben Nevis. Fion's cheeks were wind-burnt red, she was laughing, hair tangled in the wind. Era had taken the picture, shouting at her to look up. Now Fion's eyes seemed to watch her through the dim. Era's phone pinged again, a message from an unknown number. "Do you remember the circle?" She deleted it immediately. No number. No trace. Just gone. When she closed her eyes, the vision hit. She was hanging upside down from an oak tree, snow falling in slow spirals. Her stomach was open, but there was no pain, only the cold seeping in, hollow and ancient. Beneath her, 7 figures in black masks chanted softly. Blood from her body dripped onto the stones below, forming a crude pentagram. Fion stood among them, face serene, eyes white. When she spoke, her voice was not her own. "You never left the game." Era jolted awake, gasping, slick with sweat. The bedside clock glowed 23:47. The exact time she'd first started the cartridge. From the corner of the room came a soft click. The TV had turned itself on. No signal. Just static. But for an instant, between the bursts of white noise, she saw something, her own face on the screen, suspended upside down, blood trickling from her mouth. Then the image vanished. Downstairs, the N64 made a faint mechanical whine. Era crept toward it, heart pounding. The cartridge was still in. The power cable wasn't even plugged. Yet the console light glowed dim red. She crouched, whispering, "Dad's old junk, that's all it is." But when she reached to touch it, the screen lit again. No startup, no title. Just words burned into the black. Day 0 complete. 72:00 remaining. Macraith is watching. Then everything went dead. Outside, a crow screamed. And far across the frozen log, something answered. Part 2, The Hollow Beneath the Pub. Morning came grey and soundless. Era woke to the smell of vinegar. The kitchen was bright with the colorless light of winter, the air sharp and cold. Myri was already there, chopping vegetables with clinical precision, 9 bundles of celery lined in perfect rows. The rhythm of her knife was steady, hypnotic. "Morning," Era croaked. Her throat felt sanded raw. Myri didn't look up. "You didn't sleep." Era blinked. "How would you know?" "Because you screamed. Twice." The knife hit the board with a crack. "And you left the TV on." Era glanced toward the living room. The N64 was gone, unplugged, wrapped in a garbage bag on the floor. Myri must have done it. "I thought you hated that thing," Myri said without looking at her. "It kept humming all night." Era forced a smile. Old electronics. They buzz. Myri sliced through the last stalk. Then maybe don't keep playing with ghosts. The words hung between them like frost. Outside, the sky was the color of old milk. Era trudged through the slush toward the co-op market, passing boarded windows and frozen nets stiff as bone. The whole village felt like it was holding its breath. Inside, the aisles were nearly empty. She caught sight of Myri again at the far end, basket full of apple cider vinegar and bleach. 9 bottles. Always in multiples. Always symmetrical. Era turned away. Her head throbbed. The sleepless night was crawling under her skin like static. She paid for cigarettes and a tin of soup, her hands shaking as she handed the coins to the cashier. Outside, her phone buzzed. Riven. Meet me. 3 p.m. Old church cellar. I found something about Fion. She stared at the message, heart skipping. Her sister's name looked wrong on the screen, too alive. She typed back, what kind of something? No reply. Just those 3 dots that appeared, then vanished. By the time the clock struck 3, the light was already fading. The old kirk sat at the far end of the village, half swallowed by ivy, roof caved in. The door hung on one hinge, creaking with the wind. Era hesitated, cigarette trembling between her fingers. The cold was biting deeper, but under it she could feel something else, an almost magnetic pull, like the air had weight. Inside, the stone steps spiraled down into a cellar that smelled of damp earth and old communion wine. Her flashlight caught the glint of bottles, broken pews, a defrocked altar. Dr. Riven. Her voice echoed, soft as a prayer. Silence. Then, a shape moved in the shadows. He stepped out, collar turned up against the cold, face pale and drawn. Era, he said quietly. You came. She swallowed. You said you had something about Fion. He nodded, avoiding her eyes. You should see this first. From his satchel he pulled an envelope, aged paper, edges jarred. Inside were photographs, black and white prints. One showed the same stone circle where Fion's body had been found. Another showed the carved oak, the one Era had seen in her vision. They were taken in 1957, Riven said. A folklore team from Glasgow catalogued a series of winter solstice rites here. They mention a name, Lachlan Macraith. A prosecutor who vanished in 1899 after accusing an entire fishing family of witchcraft. Era frowned. So? Some urban legend. Riven's mouth tightened. That's what I thought. Until I ran facial mapping on the archival portraits. Fion's features match a woman in one of the 1957 photos. Exactly. Era stared. That's impossible. He met her eyes finally. Unless this town's been repeating something. A ritual. A cycle. Every 8 years. A low hum filled Era's ears. Not from the cellar, but from inside her skull. She pressed her palms to her temples. The light from her flashlight flickered, once, twice, and then the beam swung across the far wall. A door. Half buried behind a wine rack, old wood bolted with rusted iron. Riven froze. That wasn't there before. Without thinking, Era stepped forward, pushing the door. It groaned open. Beyond it, a stairwell descended into blackness. The smell hit first, metallic, wet, wrong. Jesus Christ, Riven whispered. Era, don't. But she was already moving. The tunnel ran beneath the church like an artery. The air was colder here, thick with mildew and the faint hiss of dripping water. Era's flashlight shook in her grip, casting erratic shadows. The walls were carved with marks, symbols, circles, numbers repeating, 8, 8, 8. Her heart pounded. Macraith, she whispered. The name tasted like rust. Riven's footsteps echoed behind her. We should go back. This isn't safe. The passage widened into a cavernous space. Wooden beams, collapsed crates, and in the center, a table. 7 figures sat propped in chairs, slumped like dolls. Their faces were flayed away, replaced by crow masks of rusted iron. Riven gagged. Dear God. Era approached slowly. The air buzzed like static around her. One of the figures wore a student ID clipped to their torn coat. She brushed the grime away with trembling fingers. University of Edinburgh, Anthropology Department. Name, Alice Quinn. Missing since 2022. Her stomach twisted. She turned, and froze. Something moved in the corner of the room. A faint, wet breath. She swung the flashlight toward it. There, lying against the far wall, was a body, fresher than the rest. Skin pale, veins blue. The face untouched, eyes half open. Era's scream broke before it reached her throat. Fionn. Her sister looked almost peaceful, as if sleeping. But her chest was open, the cavity filled with frost. A crow feather lay across her lips. Era stumbled backward, crashing into Riven. It's not real, it's not real. But then Fionn's head turned. Just slightly. And in that same dead calm, the mouth moved. You left me to freeze. Era collapsed to her knees. The cellar blurred, her vision fracturing, light and shadow twisting. She heard a faint sound, like the N64 startup tone reversed, echoing from the walls. The flashlight flickered again, and for an instant, the corpses were gone. The room was empty. Then the beam steadied, and the bodies were back, closer now. Riven's voice was distant, muffled, like underwater. Era! Get up, come on, we have to. But Era couldn't hear him. Her focus locked on Fionn's eyes, open, bright, alive. The pupils dilated, reflecting her own face. She felt warmth against her palm. Looked down. Blood. Fresh. From nowhere. You never left the game. The whisper came from behind her, Macraith's voice, oily and smooth. The flashlight died. When she came to, she was outside. Snow falling heavily. Riven was gone. She was standing beside the old church, hands red up to the wrists. The sky had dimmed to indigo. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Callum, where the hell are you? The pub's generator's on. Come here. Now. Era stared at the message, shaking uncontrollably. Her mind felt split between two worlds, the cellar still echoing somewhere behind her eyes. She turned toward the lock. For a moment, she thought she saw someone standing on the ice, a tall figure in a torn black suit, holding a gavel dripping red. Then lightning flashed, and the figure was gone. At the Crooked Crow, the windows glowed orange against the snow. The warmth was false but welcome. Callum waved her over from the bar, eyes wide. Christ, you look like death, he muttered. What happened? Era stared into her glass of whiskey, voice small. I saw her. Who? My sister. Callum froze. Era, Fionn's. I know what she is, Era hissed, gripping his wrist. But she's not done with me. Her phone buzzed again. No caller ID. Just a message. It's not me you saw. It's inside the house. She looked up sharply. Through the pub's frost-blurred window, two silhouettes stood under the street lamp, tall and short. Both wearing crow masks. Part 3, The Eighth Circle. Snow had fallen all night, muting the world. By morning, Portnacroish was a single sheet of white, roofs and boats erased beneath it. Era watched from her window, cigarette trembling between her fingers. Her breath fogged the glass, but her reflection didn't. She blinked. Still nothing. Downstairs, Mayuri was singing again, low, rhythmic, the same phrase looping under her breath. The sound threaded through the cottage like smoke. Era pulled on her coat. She needed air. Outside, silence pressed heavy against her eardrums. The sky was the color of pewter. Every footstep cracked like bones. She walked without aim until the crooked sign of the Crooked Crow appeared through the flurries. Inside, the pub was nearly empty. Only Callum behind the bar, pale and hollow-eyed. He poured whiskey without asking. You vanished last night, he said. I looked everywhere. I went home, she lied. He studied her. There's blood under your nails. She glanced down. The half-moons of red looked almost painted. It's nothing. Callum's jaw worked. Listen, Era, the people here, they are not right. They talk about the solstice like it's, he broke off, glancing toward the back room. You should leave. Tonight. I can't, she said. Something's starting. At the word, the lights flickered. Once, twice. Then died. The pub plunged into darkness. In the mirror behind the bar, faint shapes moved, a dozen masks glinting in the gloom. She didn't remember leaving. Only the wind, and Callum's shout lost in the snow. By the time she reached the cottage, the power was out again. Candles burned on the counter, each perfectly spaced. The smell of vinegar was thicker now, sweet, nauseating. Miry. No answer. She pushed open the kitchen door. Miry stood at the counter, apron spotless, slicing meat into translucent sheets. Her Yenajiba knife gleamed like glass. Beside her, a bowl of chopped celery, a jug of apple cider vinegar, and something red staining the cutting board. Era's voice came out hoarse. What is that? Miry smiled faintly. Practice. She turned one slice toward the light. The texture was wrong. Too thin. Too pale. Era's stomach lurched. Where's Callum? In the stable, Miry said. He came looking for you. Her tone was casual, almost kind. You should see him before he goes cold. The stable door hung open, snow drifting in like ash. Era's flashlight caught on something swinging gently from a beam. Callum. He was hanging upside down, eyes open, breath rasping through a gag. A star was carved across his abdomen, each line stitched crudely with black thread. When he saw her, he began to shake, making wet sounds in his throat. Era stumbled forward, reaching to untie him. His fingers caught hers, icy and slick. It's not me, he whispered through the gag, words shredded by pain. It's inside the house. His hand went limp. She ran. Back through the snow, through the dark hall, into the cottage glowing faintly orange. The fire roared too bright, shadows spinning across the walls. Miry stood before it, knife in hand. On the table, a plate of salad, celery, vinegar, thin slices of meat arranged like petals. Do you know why celery? She asked softly. It keeps the color fresh. Era's voice broke. You killed him. Miry tilted her head. You talk like this is new. Behind her, the flames shifted, two tall silhouettes forming in the glow. Dr. Riven and Ronan Shaw, faces hidden behind chrome masks of black iron. Riven's voice came muffled. The 8th winter, Era. The circle's incomplete without you. Era backed away. Why me? Because you started it, Ronan said. His mask caught the firelight like oil. You and Fion. Miry stepped closer, blade steady. She was the first body. You're the last. Era's breath stuttered. I didn't kill her. Miry's smile was almost tender. No. You just left her to freeze. The firelight warped, the walls rippled like heat haze. Era's vision fractured, snow, oak trees, blood, her sister's laughter collapsing into screams. Flash, Fion on the mountain, rope snapping, her hand slipping from Era's. Flash, Era's own gloves red with frostbite. Flash, a voice whispering, it's okay. You'll see me again. She screamed and lunged, grabbing the poker from the hearth. The iron was scalding hot, pain snapping her back to focus. Riven moved first. She swung, the poker connected with his mask, sparks bursting. He fell. Ronan caught her wrist, twisting hard, the poker clattering away. Miry's knife glinted upward. Era stumbled back into the table, knocking over the candles. Wax spilled like tears. On the wall, her own reflection stared back, except it was upside down, eyes white, blood tracing her mouth. Reckoning complete. The whisper came from the TV in the corner, dead moments ago, now glowing with static. The N64 lay beside it, cords still unplugged. On screen, pixelated flames flickered around a figure in a black suit, Lachlan Macraith. He raised his gavel. "You never left the game, error." The world folded in on itself. The cottage dissolved into the courtroom from the cartridge, same stone walls, same candles. Riven, Ronan, Myri stood in the jury box, masks gleaming. Error was at the center, hands bound, blood dripping onto snow that shouldn't have been there. Macraith's voice filled the air. "Eighth solstice. Eighth soul. The circle is sealed." She looked down. The wound on her stomach was already there, stitched and reopened again and again. The thread was frayed, like something repaired too many times. "Please," she whispered. "Let it stop." Macraith's eyes, white as milk, softened almost imperceptibly. "You can't stop what you began, child. You are the game." He raised the gavel. The world cracked like glass. Silence. Then wind. Era opened her eyes to darkness. The cottage again, cold, empty, untouched. The fire out. The table bare. Snow drifted through a broken window. Her breath came slow, shallow. She was lying on the floor, the N64 beside her. Its red light blinked once. She crawled toward it, fingers numb. The cartridge label caught the moonlight. For the first time, she noticed tiny writing beneath the tape. "Property of E. Mackenzie, do not play after death." Her reflection in the screen smiled back at her.